What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. The summer transfer window has not officially opened in Europe, but first of all, you know that silly season is a 12-month of the year game, and all of the European seasons, save for the Champions League final coming up this weekend, they're all done. So all of these teams are into their offseason, whether or not the actual transfer window date has opened. As such, all the work that these teams have been doing in terms of targets and identifying players and starting to lay groundwork, that's all going to turn into serious offers now, trying to get deals done as the dominoes fall across Europe and top targets become middle targets, become next targets, and then deals get done. As always, MLS players will be in this game of musical chairs. There are several that are likely this summer to go, I would think, and I'm going to run through all of those here. Just kind of looking back at last summer, a couple of the big ones were Tati Castellanos, NYCFC to Lazio. I know that he hadn't been at NYCFC for a year, but he was loaned to Girona, played there for a year, and then so he's technically transferred to NYCFC, but I get it. Georgi Petrovic to Chelsea, which that deal is now just under $20 million in terms of transfer because of some add-ons hit. Just awesome player, awesome deal, good fit with Chelsea. Brenner, Cincinnati to Udinese, not a good first season in Italy for Brenner with injury and not being selected all the time, but hey, they avoided relegation near the end of the season, so good for them. Luis Araujo from Atlanta to Flamengo, remember him? Gabby Pereira from NYCFC to Al Rayyan. Lucas Zelarayan, Columbus to Al Fatah. Christian Castros, Red Bulls to Toulouse. Those are just some of the names. So every summer, we're going to get stars or decent players or rising young talents that are going to transfer from MLS to Europe, whether or not it's going to be at the level of Tati Castellanos, Georgi Petrovic, and Brenner. These are three deals that were more than $10 million each. Or if it's going to be, Tajon Buchanan and Matt Turner or whatever, right? Like, you kind of go on down the list. So very useful players, but not quite the same money. Anyway, with that being said, let's get into MLS players to watch in the transfer window this summer. So what I've done here is I've broken them into different tiers, and this first tier is called headliners. These are the biggest players, potentially probably the most expensive players that might go this summer, and these are the ones that I think that I'm going to be talking about all summer long until the deals are done. Some of these are closer than others, and some of these are more speculative. But let's get into it. First headliner, Giorgios Giakoumis. As I've been reporting for the last few weeks, Cruz Azul really want him. And Atlanta United, to my surprise, are open to the move at the right price. I only say to my surprise, not as a commentary on whether this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but just that the stance that I was hearing from the team in the winter when they were kind of loose talks for a new contract, and then the spring, a little bit loose talks for a new contract, is they're so happy with him, and it felt like they would just find a new contract, and that'd be that. Not looking that way, if I had to be honest. Cruz Azul made an initial bid around $6 million that was rejected out of hand pretty quickly. And then as far as I understand, Atlanta kind of gave a price back. And you don't give a price back if you don't have an intention of selling at all. Whenever this gets published and you're listening to this, I'm assuming that we're like hours away from another bid rather than like days away. So it's possible that the second bid has arrived by the time you listen to it. I'm expecting it to. And if Cruz Azul bid around, let's say, $8 million in add-ons or maybe even up to $10 million, I think Atlanta take that. And we'll see exactly what happens, but that's just my stance on this from people I've talked to and just kind of reading the situation. Look, Cruz Azul has money. Like, the biggest teams in Liga MX have a lot of money, and they have limited foreigner spots as well. So it's not too dissimilar to like the DP rule in MLS, where like there's going to be a few players that are super concentrated with the money. Like, their international roster slots are kind of like that. Their foreign player slots or whatever they exactly call it. I will tell you that Cruz Azul, the contract that they're going to put in front of Giakoumis is very, very big. Not even close to kind of what he's on in Atlanta right now. So maybe this could have been avoided if Atlanta gave him a new contract in the winter, but I understand why they weren't urgent. Like, he had been here for a year, so that's kind of how that works. Giakoumis, he's 29. He's got 5 goals and 3 assists in 700 minutes this season. 24 goals, 5 assists, and about 2,700 minutes for Atlanta in his year and a half at the team. He's been awesome, and I think that he fits really, really well with Thiago Almada, and he's a really fun personality to have in this league. A few people, obviously upset about how things are going on in Gonzalo Pineda, tried to deduce that maybe this has to do with the coach. I can tell you he loves Pineda. Like, why wouldn't he? He plays all the time. Like, he scores goals. It's a good system, all that. Like, the coach supports him. So this isn't like he said, screw Pineda, I'm out. Like, for me, it has more to do with money than anything else. And, like, let me tell you, folks, being inside some of these deals and a lot of rationale of, oh, why did this player go to this team? Why this, that? A lot of it comes down to money. That's what it is. Look, if Thiago Almada doesn't go this summer, I think Giakoumis could be the biggest transfer fee. Again, if it's like 8 to 10, again, that's not like a crazy number for like selling, but that's a serious deal. Atlanta bought him for $4 million from Celtic. Selling at this figure is going to be really good business, even if he's really difficult to replace, and he's going to be difficult to replace. But look, Atlanta are responsible for the 3 most expensive transfer fees in league history. Ezequiel Barco 3, PT Martinez 2, and Thiago Almada 1. 16 million, 15.5, and 15, I believe, something in that range. So, if any team can replace this guy, it's Atlanta United. So, good business all around. I'll be sad if he's only been here for a year and a half because he's a fun player to watch and a really good player. But, hey, that's the game, man. Next headliner, Julian Carranza. As I reported this week, Feyenoord are in talks to sign Julian Carranza when his contract expires this winter from the Philadelphia Union. Nothing's agreed yet between player and club, but Feyenoord are pushing. Feyenoord obviously really like this player. For me, I think this would be a great fit. So all that to say is I'd assume this gets done. I think this is a really good landing spot for Julian Carranza. But again, at time of recording, nothing is totally agreed yet, and we'll see where this goes. If a deal is agreed between Carranza and Feyenoord, Philadelphia and Feyenoord would talk if there's a deal to be reached now. So Philly would get some compensation for Carranza to leave now. That means that Feyenoord would get the player for a full preseason and all of that. But again, they'd have to pay, and maybe there's a sell-on clause, all of that. You know, Philly are very smart with this transfer business, particularly on the selling side. So Philly have proven very smart in the transfer market, both in selling and buying. So I could see that that would make the most sense, and they haven't been stubborn. So Feyenoord CEO Dennis Ticlosa, if you remember, was the LA Galaxy GM. So obviously him and Ernst Tanner have a relationship and have familiarity. So and they're both reasonable guys as far as I understand. So I'm going to be honest, if Feyenoord agree a deal, I think that there would be room for him to leave in the summer. But again, that's more speculation than anything else for me. But again, there's a couple ifs there. But if I had to pick the most likely path right now, educated guess, it'd probably be all of that. This is interesting because Carranza in the winter turned down transfers to Ipswich Town, Mainz, and Werder Bremen. He's picky about his next spot. He was smart enough that he knew he had the leverage of like, look, my contract expires in a year. I'll have even more freedom to go where I want. So, like, again, the fact that he's engaged with Feyenoord shows that obviously he has interest in going there. Like, I don't think Ipswich Town even like got to serious talks. I think it was just like Carranza said no off the jump. I don't know, but you know, that's what happened in the winter. Again, all of that to say is that like it just bolsters the idea that this move would make sense and that it's very serious. I asked around. I was like, you know, after he rejected those offers in the winter, I was like, hey, is there any chance that Philly could just re-sign him and keep him like a Kai Wagner situation? I was told no, it wasn't really close. One, Carranza wants to go to Europe, and I admire that. I understand that. And to stay here would be very expensive and more than the Union were willing to pay. And clearly he didn't see a need to wait until MLS free agency, where other teams like Atlanta United or Cincinnati or like kind of going down the list, and these aren't teams that necessarily had interest in him or anything. It's just teams that off the top of my head would spend a lot of money on a player like this. So the idea of a new contract here in Philly wasn't really serious, again, as far as I understand. To look back on this already, not to close the book on Julian Carranza's time in Philadelphia, this is one of the very best pieces of business in the last decade in MLS. They acquired him from Inter Miami for $500,000 in allocation money. He's been phenomenal. 43 goals and 20 assists and 95 appearances with the Union. He's been integral to everything they did, like just penalty kicks, won the latest goal in league history away from winning MLS Cup, tied for the Supporters' Shield. So, like, he doesn't walk away with hardware, but, like, he's been incredible for the Union and just, like, what a masterclass in talent identification and buying low and value and all that. So, there's that. Next up, Columbus Crew star Aidan Morris. I don't have a ton of specifics here, but I truly believe that this is one of the guys that I'm going to be talking about a whole lot this summer. As far as, like, for what I know, their interest in Morris, right? Like, Championship, Belgium, Germany, like the usual suspects, right? Like, you're probably going to hear me say those leagues a lot throughout this video. It just makes sense. It's like MLS buys from Argentina a lot, or Colombia, right? Like, it's markets that feed into other markets. And his player profile makes a lot of sense at those places. For me, the summer feels like the right time for Aidan Morris. And with Columbus playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final on Saturday, like, after that is when things might start to get a little bit serious, because like if he wants to break into the U.S. national team, the senior U.S. national team, like for good, for real, which I know that he does, kind of has to move, right? Like Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Luca Della Torre can barely get any games for the national team. Tanner Tessman and Gianluca Busio playing for Venezia, they can't get into the senior team, right? Like I know that a couple of these players, it might be different if there wasn't the Olympics this summer. Same thing with Aidan Morris, but like playing in MLS after, when you're 22 or whatever, like might be a little bit difficult just because of all of the quality and stature of that central midfield group. So like, I know Aidan Morris is very ambitious. He's been at this club. He's won 2 MLS Cups. Hopefully, we'll see as an MLS homer. We'll see if he wins the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. So what more can he do? He's already got more than 100 first-team appearances, which is impressive in and of itself, but particularly so, his first professional season was 2020. That was a COVID-shortened season, so there was much less games to be played. And then he missed all of 2021 with a torn ACL. So he's played more than 100 first-team appearances in the last 2.5 years. Like, he's been really impressive, his development, everything else. He doesn't have really anything left to prove, left to develop, left to do in MLS. He's awesome next to Darlington Nagbe. Like, dude, if he wanted to just say, give me a bigger contract and I'll be here for 15 years, like, I wouldn't blame him, right? Like, what a great situation. But I know that he's an ambitious kid and he wants to keep pushing forward, moving forward, and that's admirable as well. So Aidan Morris, just on those deductions alone, is a player that I very much expect is going to be talked about this summer, and hopefully I'll have some reporting to do on him. Next headliner, truly, the headliner if things are happening, Thiago Almada. But the reason why he's the fourth player I'm talking about, I can count. The reason why he's the fourth player I'm talking about is, dude, I'm sick of saying the same things, man. It's every transfer window. All right, like, once again, like, Thiago Almada could set the new MLS transfer record for an outbound transfer. He's the only active MLS player to win the World Cup. He's, blah, blah, blah. Once again, there's nothing new to report is the whole thing. I don't know what else to say. Yes, Atlanta United still want to keep Thiago Almada. But yes, they understand in all likelihood they're going to have to sell him at some point. But it depends on if those offers come. And no offers have really came. There hasn't been anything serious where they've turned it down, right? Like, there's been interest. There's been backdoor talks, really, but nothing like, hey, here's a $25 million bid. And then, like, you have something to think about. Not really, man. So if that continues this summer, could they use that as leverage for, hey, look, we didn't stand in your way. It's just there wasn't any offers. Here's a new contract. Here, you can be the second highest paid player in MLS behind Messi, or like the third or fourth, right? Like in that tier with Busquets and Shaqiri and Insigne, whatever, right? Like, would that be enough to stay? Atlanta have the money. I don't know, man. It's just food for thought. He hasn't been that good this season, truth be told, Thiago Almada, but like nobody's doubting his quality. Like he's proven his talent, everything else. Like he's gonna be at the Olympics with Argentina, the captain of the Argentine Olympic team. Like I like he would have to play bad in MLS for like 18 months, I think, for that to like really be a thing. And then even at that, dude, you could pull out highlight clip. You could make a little highlight reel from his 2024 season, and he, again, even though it's an air quote down season for him, like you can pull out plenty of moments. So I'm not worried about Thiago Almada. I don't think that the team's interested or would be entirely worried. Like, again, it just comes down to he was a MVP finalist last year, and those offers didn't really come. So let's see what happens this summer. I'm sorry for repeating myself so many times. I don't know how many different ways to convey the same set of information. So, man, you and me both are hoping that there's an offer so I can just talk about something else with him, because I just keep saying the same things. Last headliner for me, Duncan McGuire. Orlando City center forward, U.S. Olympic hopeful. He shouldn't even be here right now because 2 deals fell through with Blackburn in the winter in bizarre fashion. For those of you paying attention at home, that was the first one. They had the deal agreed on a permanent transfer, and he was boarding a plane. He left training camp to travel, and while he was on his connecting flights in New York to get to England, the Blackburn sporting director called because ownership told him to pull out of all deals. There's no money. Sorry, we can't do anything. So Duncan McGuire was in limbo as he was traveling to England. And he was on his way, and he was there on deadline day. Sheffield Wednesday, a couple other teams had some interest. Miraculously, Blackburn bridged the gap with his representation with Orlando. They said, our finances have changed again. We can restructure the deals alone. Would you be interested? They figured all that out. They did it. They agreed. He took a cab to Blackburn's training facilities because Blackburn and Sheffield Wednesday both sent cars to his hotel to try to pick him up and bring him to get a move done. He goes to Blackburn. He does the medical. He signs a contract, physically signed a contract, all of that. Everything was done. He was wearing Blackburn attire. He did a interview for the club site. He took pictures with the Blackburn shirt and scarf. And then the administrator clicked save instead of submit on the paperwork. And by the time they realized, the window had already closed. And the FA said, sorry, you didn't file the paperwork in time. The administrator has since been fired. The sporting director is gone. The head coach left not long after that because of how angry he was at how the transfer window went and everything else. A bit of a clown show over there, right? So Blackburn are still interested. I don't know why he'd consider, but hey, like I said with Giakoumis, man, if the money's right, who knows? Other championship teams are interested in Maguire. Some other ones around the United Kingdom as well. Polish team, Legia Warsaw. I don't see that happening, but they did submit a bid. Orlando borderline was like, this is insulting, the offer. We'll see. He's got 5 goals this season after having to win his job back after Luis Muriel was signed. But he just dislocated his shoulder, so he'll be out for a little bit. Orlando are talking with him and his reps about a new contract. Still, they've made a little bit of progress in the talks. Much more than the winter. That's partly why he was pushing for that transfer, because contract talks weren't going so well and the interest was there, so that's kind of how it happened. Everything's fluid. We'll see what happens. Orlando want to keep Duncan Maguire. They keep saying that. They said that all winter. They want to keep him, but let's see what offers come. This next section here is young players. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to dive into what exactly this all means. We'll start off with NYCFC left back Christian McFarland. I reported in the spring, a while ago it feels now, Manchester City are closing in on a deal. For the reason why there have been not many updates. Manchester City, NYCFC, same ownership. The kid's 17. There's not a ton of urgency, right? So things stand the same way. I'm expecting him to join City in the winter. But, right, until anything's signed. So, Christian McFarland, really, really big talent. The 17-year-old left back, left wing back, probably plays a wide center back in a back three, maybe. I don't know. He was tracked by a lot of teams. Well-respected ones in England for youth, for talent identification as well. I heard Southampton and Brighton really liked him. Those are 2 teams extremely well-respected in their talent ID and youth development. And obviously the big clubs. Look, he's an England Youth International. He's more or less a constant for the U17 team, particularly at the U17 Euros right now. All of the English teams are going to be interested in some degree, right? City loved him though, right? He trained there in one winter as a highly talented player coming through NYCFC's academy, just a winter training thing. This is normal around MLS. They loved him, and he loved Manchester City. He was swayed right then and there. So when Man City kind of made actions on that interest and that value, pretty straightforward as far as I know. From what I've been told from scouts and youth coaches and everything else, he's got top athletic metrics. Again, he's a mainstay for the England U17s. He's played in all 3 Euros group stage, U17 Euro group stage games, 2 starts and an appearance off the bench. He's got an assist. It was a hell of a group for England, and they got out of it. They're into the quarterfinals this week. He's a very big talent. He's probably one you haven't heard a ton about because he hasn't made his MLS debut yet. He's played in MLS Next Pro for NYCFC's second team. NYCFC's second team were their participants in the Open Cup, so he played in the Open Cup for the second team, but still not technically first team debut. Whatever it is, he came into the season as the recognized backup left back, and I'm assuming this summer he's going to get his debut. He's got him, right? We'll see. Next up, Philadelphia Union central midfielder Jack McGlynn. This is one of my favorite players in the league, bar none. His left foot is so special, and it probably says something about my psyche that I like, an unathletic central midfielder who just has really good vision and really good passing range, shooting ability, all that stuff, right? Speaks to me as somebody who's pudgy white guy who doesn't have a ton of athletic ability. So I appreciate it. His vision, man, his range, everything else, it is super special. He reminds me of Haris Medunjanin, Philadelphia Union center mid. He was a Bosnia and Herzegovina international for a long time. I think he made 60 caps or something. He was one of my favorite players in the league too, for all these same reasons. And I don't know if this is going to be McGlynn's destiny or not, but talking to people at Philly, and again, I want to preface this by saying Medunjanin had a wonderful career. Excellent. Played top leagues, Bosnia international, all that, made some good money, played some good years in MLS too. If he was more athletic, he would have been like Bayer Leverkusen or Tottenham or whatever, right? Like his left foot was Champions League, and like World Cup. Not that that would have changed for Bosnia. Obviously, you can't change your national teams, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like the only thing that stopped him from being at the top level was his athleticism. Maybe that's gonna be Jack McGlynn's story. Who knows? That's obviously a big bar in terms of just again how special Medunjanin and his passing ability, possession, all that technical qualities were. But McGlynn has that in him, man, and particularly when they overlapped in Philly or McGlynn was breaking through after Medunjanin left, it made sense. There's been interest of varying degrees from the Championship in Germany, bigger clubs in Belgium, and the Netherlands. Again, a lot of the same markets that you're probably going to hear a bunch. No offers have arrived yet, and it's unclear how much it would take for Philly to sell him, particularly an immediate transfer. The club could look to structure a deal like they did for Brendan Aronson to Red Bull Salzburg, where they agreed in the summer or the fall for a winter transfer, or Paxton Aronson. That deal with Eintracht Frankfurt was mostly all there before the winter, but like they didn't want to lose either player during the season. McGlynn turns 21 this summer, and he's already got 100 appearances for the first team. He's done really well at continuing to develop. Last year, he really took it upon himself, or the last 2 years, that like, hey, like I'm playing for a reason, and when Bedoya or Jose Martinez gives me the ball, like I'm the best right now at breaking lines and distance. So like I need to take more risks because that's what the team needs from me. This year, and Jim Curtin has talked about this in press conferences, they challenged him, we need you to shoot more. You need to be more selfish sometimes. We need you to be confident. He's done that. He scored a couple bangers this year. So it's been cool to watch this development happen, but at some point, there's going to be a ceiling. And at some point, he's going to need to go to the next level. I would love to see him go to the championship because I think he'd fit well there, and it would be a great test of his athleticism. If he could hang in that league, again, MLS is like that too. It's a transition heavy. It's a very athletic league. If he would prove that, I think that's a really good stepping stone for him to prove to the rest of the teams, like, dude, I can hang when people are running, when people are banging. Like, I've got more to my game than maybe you guys know. So we'll see what happens with him this summer. Next up, Diego Gomez, Inter Miami midfielder winger. He's a Paraguay international, and he's been absolutely excellent with particularly around Lionel Messi. His understanding of space, his ability to find the game without dominating the ball is exactly what you need to have in players around Messi, Busquets, Alba, Suarez, who are going to be ball-dominant players for obvious reasons. So the fact that he's been really smart at understanding space, making the correct runs, and the timing of the runs, it's been very impressive. So yes, teams are taking notice. His ankle injury slowed things down, but there's been some links with Brighton. I've heard that's true, but I don't really know how serious it is. And this is why I try to be careful about reporting on interest, because you could, one, it's very hard to disprove interest, right? Like, and two, at what degree are the teams interested, right? Like, so again, I think that it was useful to say the team name just to show that, like, I was surprised when I heard it. Like, I didn't know exactly kind of what the kind of teams were that were looking at him. But again, this is one of the teams that is most well-respected for their talent identification. And they've had success with Paraguayans as well, like South Americans, and finding players from, say, non-traditional markets. And right now, the Premier League, for a player like him, MLS, that's a non-traditional market for Premier League clubs to be shopping at. Anyway, he helped lead Paraguay U23s to the Olympics. Tata Martino kind of already said he needs to pick one, Copa America or Olympics, which is unfortunate to have to pick, but it's a pretty cool spot to be in, that like he could either go to the Copa or he could captain probably Paraguay U23s at the Olympics. That's cool. He's got 3 goals and 3 assists in about 1,000 minutes this year. He's a very interesting player. He's like a modern midfielder to me. He's like super athletic. He can do a lot of things pretty good, but like, what is his best quality? Maybe it's his athleticism. Maybe it's his understanding of space. And because of that, like, I'm not entirely sure what his best position is. Is it as a non-traditional winger, or is it as like a free 8 in a 4-3-3? Like, this conversation reminds me of Malik Tillman, just in the idea of, I'm not exactly sure what his right position is, but I just know he's a good player. I think he'd fit in England for sure, and they just need to figure out kind of what the best position to put him at and develop him at, because he's a super talented player. I don't know if Miami would sell this summer, but again, it depends on what the money comes in. I hope that he sticks around for the rest of the season. I think he'll be a very important player for Miami in their pursuit of trophies, but we'll see. Next up, New England Revolution midfielder and England Youth International, Noel Buck. He hasn't played a ton in 2024 under Caleb Porter. That'll drive the price down, but it hasn't driven interest away, right? I think last year New England, in their strongest suit, would have asked for $7 million because like a Tajon Buchanan type deal. He was playing all the time. He was playing really well. Right now, I think that they would probably take $2.5, $3 million. Again, this is just educational guesses based on what I know, what I hear, what I see, and understanding the market. So, not great for your new head coach and Noah Buck. Again, he hasn't played that much, but again, he's been a constant with the England Youth International squad. He's got the English passport, obviously, so that makes it much easier for English teams. I think that he could settle really well at a championship club, and that's what I would pick. But like, there's German clubs, the top teams in Belgium, and that just makes sense for Noah Buck. We'll see what happens this summer. I think that there should be urgency. If he's not playing here, what's the point, right? That he should move on. But we'll see if the offers come and if they even make sense for New England, because right now they might not. We'll see. San Jose goalkeeper Emanuel Ochoa, the Mexico Youth International. He was regarded among MLS Academy goalkeepers like Gaga Slonina, like Chris Brady, like some of these top talents. Like, he was viewed in that elite class of teenage goalkeepers breaking through. He's 19 years old, and he's with the Mexican Youth National Team. He's most recently with their U20s. He's been with both the United States and Mexico. He can still play for either. But very talented kid, because there's not going to be a lot of stats to point to because he hasn't started for the he hasn't broken in to be the first choice goalkeeper for the first team, which is not abnormal for his age, right? His contract expires this winter, which is not great for San Jose. Not great that they weren't proactive on this. So now he can start talking pre-contracts and leave for free. Because of the Mexican passport and his town and everything else, a lot of Liga MX teams want him. A lot. Like, why wouldn't they want a youth national team goalkeeper? So there's a lot of suitors there. There are teams in Europe who like him. San Jose are still trying to re-sign him, but I don't know, man. Like, I fear it might be too late. I don't know that for sure. We'll see what kind of the contract is going to look like wherever he goes, whatever he does. So, all that to say, he's in hot commodity, and with him, like, I don't know if he's going to leave this summer. Probably not. But free transfer in the winter is looking very likely. A couple more here. Diego Luna, the Real Salt Lake attacker. There's nothing that's like active as far as I know in terms of talks or offers or imminent offers, but he opted to sign with Real Salt Lake from El Paso because of the club's European connection. David Blitzer is ownership group of several teams in Europe, and part of the plan was, hey, sign with us, come here, you'll play, you'll develop, you'll earn good money, and we'll help you get to Europe. So that always has to be part of this conversation, even when there's nothing that's obvious. He turned heads at the U20 World Cup, and he's going to be a key player for the Olympic team, and that convinces teams to move if you have a big tournament. He signed a new contract, though, so there's no real urgency from Real Salt Lake, but Real Salt Lake are also, they understand the business, and they're reasonable. So if a big offer comes in, that's the right spot for him, it could happen. But all that to say is nothing's imminent. And if I had to guess, I'd assume that he's not going to leave this summer. But when we're mentioning all of these players, he's got to be talked about. The 20-year-old already has more than 100 professional appearances between El Paso and Real Salt Lake. What I really like about him is that he's had some down moments, and his mentality is top. Like, he's bounced immediately back. The transition from El Paso to Real Salt Lake, he wasn't playing a ton immediately. And he broke through that, and he's a better player because of it. He's a better player because of what Pablo Mastroeni and that coaching staff has done. This year, we were all looking at him to take the next step. It took him a slow start to this season, and he's playing well again. And he opened up. He's got incredible maturity for his age, talking about mental health struggles and stuff. But like, just adding context to, like, hey man, remember that these guys are humans. Like, this dude's mentality is so top. I bet on that above all. Like, his talent is there. I'll be like, you guys could watch it too. Like, his talent is incredible. All that stuff. His mentality is, I think, what's going to make him work. And, like, I think he'll be in Europe, and I think he'll be successful, and that's just where I am. One more in this section, Adilson Malanda, the Charlotte FC center back. There is interest. There's a lot of teams that are coming to watch him. Charlotte have made it clear he's not for sale this summer. We will not. Again, I guess maybe they could find an agreement for the winter, but Charlotte are pretty insistent he's staying for the rest of 2024. They have kept 5 straight clean sheets. He's been integral to that. He's been so good this year. He's been integral to the team's really positive start and new identity. It's pretty crazy what happens when you just put your best players in their best positions and simplify the game. It's crazy. Well done, Dean Smith. So he's going to make Charlotte some money one day. he's going to be at the next level one day. For some things that Charlotte have gotten wrong in their first few years in MLS, what they cannot be criticized for is their youth ID, youth development, all that stuff. Like, they've been very, very good at that. And Adilson Malanda might be the best example right now because he was super unheralded when he was signed. He had some impressive appearances. Last year wasn't great. And again, I put that more on the coaching staff than I do on him. And like, he's just straight up. I think him and Tomas Aviles are the two top young center backs in the league. And then like Jalen Neal probably. And then I don't think it's close after that. Like, he's a really, really good player. Cannot say enough good things about him. All right, last section. We're calling this Deadwood. Not all transfers abroad are your Jack McGlynn's and your Diego Lunas and your Christian McFarland's or your Giorgios Giakoumis, the positive stories, the development, the stars, whatever. Part of the game is Deadwood, man, and clearing the salary cap, particularly in MLS. So we're going to start here with Karol Swiderski, which it feels a little bit mean to call him Deadwood because I wouldn't call him that. But Hellas Verona said that they're not triggering his purchase option, but that they still like him. He's going in this section for me because Charlotte want new DPs. They want different DPs. So technically, I guess he is Deadwood, right? The Polish international, he only had 2 goals in 500 minutes across 15 games for Hellas Verona, so he very clearly wasn't like a key player for the team. But look, it's difficult to join midseason. Charlotte signed him for about $5 million. They might not make their money back, but I think it's more important to have an open DP spot than to like claw back every single dollar of what they invested in him. Again, he's still a Polish international. He's still got the experience top flights in Europe. So I think that there will be a market for him. Let's see what happens. Okay, this is Deadwood. Xherdan Shaqiri, Chicago Fire attacking midfielder. He's out of contract after this season. In his 3rd full season in the United States, it is just very clear. It hasn't not worked out for him or the Fire. 16 goals and 13 assists in 75 appearances for Chicago, which is honestly more than I thought. The Fire has failed to make the playoffs in each of the seasons he's been here, and they are barreling towards that again this year. They are just... I've said enough about Chicago. I don't want to keep piling on. It's just awful. And he's the face of that. So, look, if there is an interest elsewhere, is there a buyout? Is there a, hey, go play for Lugano for half a season or something like Ignacio Aliseda and Kasper Schmeichel have? I don't know. Maybe. He left early to go join Switzerland for the Euros. And, like, when I say early, I mean, like, a couple days early. Like, we don't want you to play early. Just a very bad sign. So, I don't know. This needs to come to a conclusion. And who knows? Maybe the Fire will just sign Xherdan Shaqiri 2.0 and we'll be in this same cycle in a couple years again because they keep doing the same things. Giacomo Veroni, New England Revolution center forward. Look, it's just been another underwhelming attacking DP. He's still under contract through next year. He's been a regular in the starting lineup, but he hasn't contributed enough. Only a few goals. Look, this is just pretty straightforward. Needs to leave so they can bring in another DP. It's not complicated. It won't necessarily be easy, but this is the modern game. Find a suitor for your Deadwood. If you have to eat some contract, you have to eat some contract, whatever. Hasn't worked out. He signed for $4 million from Juventus to replace Adam Buxa. Hasn't been good enough. Simple as. I don't have a lot more to say. 2 more here. We'll start with Aaron Bupenza. FC Cincinnati forward has 9 goals and 4 assists in 31 matches with Cincy. He's still recovering from a broken jaw. It's possible he's played his last game for the club. There were high highs. Last year, he looked really, really good. Coming into this season, I thought he was going to be in the Golden Boot race. But there were also low lows. Last fall, he was suspended at different stages for different things by both the FC Cincinnati and the Gabon national team. Not a great sign. Since he paid $7 million for Bupenza, they ain't coming close to that, bro. Like, not close. But it's most important that they, again, open a DP spot and just get him off the books. Another complicating factor here is that he's already played in Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and China. And those are 3 markets that would take a roll of the dice that could pay his wages and maybe some fee. And he's super talented. We'll roll the dice on him. He's already been in all those markets. So he is what he is at this stage, right? Like, I don't know how many more teams are going to take the risk on him for much investment, but we'll see, man. Talent talks. He's really, really good. He really is. Like, I don't want to pile on him. Like, but man, you can't be relied on. Like, that's why there's like I've told this anecdote before. There's another MLS team that almost signed him, and we're like, no way. Like, we can't. We think he's incredible. If it's just his talent, he would have been worth a lot more, and we wouldn't even be able to sign him. But man, we can't take a risk on the character stuff, the off-field stuff. So it is what it is. Last one, Emanuel Reynoso. Once again, he had an extended, unexcused absence this year after doing the same in 2023. He burned all of his bridges. I've talked about it in this channel, like in my writing and my tweets. Like, he's gonna leave this summer, one way or the other. He might have played his last game for the team because Club Tijuana are in advanced talks to sign him. I haven't gotten an update since breaking that news last week. We'll see. Nothing was agreed at that time. Since then, there was a troubling image that came out that showed him with somebody who was holding a gun and a bag of money. So I don't know if that's going to complicate things with Giorgios or not, but that's where it stands. He's going to leave this summer. Minnesota United have been super fun. They've turned the page, man. It's a new era. They don't need Reynoso. Moving on. All right, that'll do it. I'm going to have a whole lot more of summer transfer window content because it's what I do. Hopefully there will be a lot of breaking news on these players and others, both outgoing and incoming. Summer soccer is here. Midweek games are here. Copa, the Euros, the Olympics, Leagues Cup, all this stuff. It's going to be an absolute blur of games to watch and talk about the summer transfer news. Everything else, pray for my sleep schedule, pray for my eyeballs just looking at all these screens. I'm going to go to the beach.